Welcome back, everybody, to another market day. I'm your designated inquirer. My name is Axel, and today is 8/17/2020. Just a reminder that I am not a financial advisor. You should seek your own financial advice. These are just my own personal opinions of statistical analysis that I'm doing and about other things, but of information that I gather is only to explain how I see something in a statistical manner, in terms of explaining the probability of something possibly happening. It's not a guarantee. Again, ask your own financial advisor and or do your own research before you make a decision on buying or selling any financial asset. Anyway, let's get to it. Today was an interesting day. We hit new all-time highs. On the back of what exactly, I'm not exactly sure, but something interesting to point out here is that we achieved this new all-time high on very low volume. If we go back here, what we see here is, I don't know if I can see the volume there per se. Yeah, I don't know if I can see the volume there for that day, but it looks like it's around 235,000 shares of the NASDAQ. When in comparison to other days where it has been that low, there aren't really a whole lot. You have to fall back to around here when it was that low. You have to fall back to around here when it was that low, etc. You gotta fall back quite a ways away for you to be able to find that. In either case though, it happened to be at a time when volatility was relatively very low. What could this mean? It may mean that volatility has yet to pick up a little bit further, considering still that we have a very few months to go to the election, which is obviously includes a very a time with increased volatility, naturally occurring volatility. So some stuff might happen then that for some reason we might not be seeing right now. Like it's not manifesting now, obviously, because the movements are getting smaller, the volatility is getting smaller, but the directionality in and of itself is not as defined, and yet at the same time it is defined, because if you take a look at a longer term chart, it does look like it's just marching along, that there has been no disruption to effectively what is the bull run. Things that are still happening in terms of economic indicators, there weren't a whole bunch that came out today, but some things like PPI and a couple other things did come out. In and of themselves, they should probably not have affected the market to the extent that it did today by itself. More or less, what we kind of see here is, I don't know, from a technical standpoint, maybe it just decided to keep going. It's kind of really hard to say why the market decided to do this. Was it just that it was trying to test the high end and see if it could get through because of the general proximity to it? In which case, okay, all right, good job guys, you did it, but on very low volume. What may be essentially low conviction. And why do I mean by that? Well, volume is an indicator. If we take a look at like any given day, let's say this right here, generally the beginning and end of the day tend to be a point of high volume. Whether or not you take that as the starting point for the day can vary. It could be the first or second candle that kind of sets the pace for the rest of the day. In this case right here, the first couple candles kind of showed an upward movement. A lot of times you'll have a lot of zigzag at the beginning of the day, because you'll have basically one side of the market fight strong, and then they'll see if the other side has as much strength. In this case right here, if we take a look at the beginning of the day, it would shoot up during the beginning of the day, but retrace strongly, right? but still to lowering volume. But this really can't be helped too much. But what is important in this case at the beginning of the day is that it was not able to overtake the downturn. And so when they had an opportunity to try again for the upside, it was more easily able to overtake to the upside. Now here, what's kind of interesting is that you do have, apart from a long wick on the lower side, which is kind of also is an indicator of what could be. You had an increasing volume here on a bullish indicator, even though it did ended up moving down. This kind of gives the indication that it could move up, so it does. Here you start to see a waning of support, meaning that there isn't as much volume registering to the upside. And this one here still gives you more and higher volume, in which case it's a further implementation that it could still have some room to run, because immediately after, when you have two more or less down candles, the volume is nowhere near as high. So this gives further indication that there's probably still some more room to the upside, which it kind of does over the next few candles, up until you keep decreasing in volume. And now your candles are more or less undecided and also have some room to the top side, is when you can kind of turn around. You start to see some candles increasing in volume, but to the downside as well. In this case right here, where these two candles were of the highest volume, you had one going up but with room to the upside on a long wick, and then it decidedly moved downward on higher volume. This whole move here to the upside was on lower volume, and so there wasn't as much conviction until you got to here, where maybe it had decided to turn around, but it was fought hard. So maybe here's kind of what could be seen as an inflection point, but you know, for whatever reason it didn't move lower. So it could go either way. So it tested to the upside to see how much further it could go, up until you get to here, where you have higher volume and it decidedly what would be called like a bear flag. And so you have this bear flag on higher volume, and you're basically off to the races. This decidedly lower volume candle here is on the upside, and so that's further indication that the upside bulls don't have as much conviction, and so it moves to this downside decidedly. The same thing could kind of be said right now about what's going on right here across this entire day, that there is effectively less conviction about this move upward because there's low volume on the daily candle, and the lowest volume, a significant drop in volume on this upside move. So even though it would make sense to me for it to move lower, it doesn't have to. For whatever case, this could move up tomorrow, be a breakout signal, and all of a sudden have a lot of volume, and you know, that's the only explanation as to why it moved higher. The market, the economic fundamentals are still to a lower side. There's still a lot of information that has to get processed to find accurate data in terms of pricing, overtime, etc., to accurately price like rental units, etc., like that, because the demand for those things have dramatically come down. In terms of and that's basically everything that I know of at the moment. If we take a look, if I try and take a look at what happened during the day in terms of Yahoo Finance, let's just take a look and see if anybody else had a different take. Not really. Oh, there was some things that I thought would probably incur more of the market's ire, but it had effectively zero effect, in that Donald Trump is now thinking of also affecting Alibaba, which is a Chinese company that sure deals with American information, but on businesses, because they're actively interacting with Chinese manufacturers. there's no necessarily security concerns there because they're not actively tracking position and behavior of the clientele, only behavior in what they're directly purchasing, which anyway they would have from the Chinese manufacturer in the first place. So there's no added discovery or danger of information there because it's all an open transaction anyway. You would want it to be an open and visible transaction from the part of regulators, tax purposes, etc., and all these things. So there is zero security issues present with Alibaba, and yet Donald Trump wants to move ahead and possibly affect them too. This throws their previous argument as to why they're contemplating actions against TikTok and WeChat out the window, because now it seems like there is no justification for these actions. It's just that they just happen to be Chinese companies, and to some extent that TikTok as a platform happens to be affecting his campaign. So if anything, this should be seen in light of indefinitely postponed trade talks with China and increased tensions with trade tensions with China, that China could turn around and take some actions against American companies. They could decide to outright ban Facebook. They could decide to outright ban Amazon. They could decide to outright ban and nationalize things like Tesla. There's a lot of things that could happen that could be very detrimental should tensions between the United States and China keep flaring up. And none of that is any good for the stock market. And so I'm very surprised that this type of information was not met with more, not just skepticism, but outright fear, that this did not cause fear to increase and or uncertainty. When we look at the VIX didn't do so hot today. The VIX went and decidedly dropped today. We can't really see volume and all those other indications here because there really isn't one. This is the way this goes about being measured is very particular. I'm not exactly sure how you would go about deciding how to measure the volume. Maybe through options, possibly through the volume of options traded, but apart from that, it's kind of hard to tell. But it moved lower, so it's very hard to say that there was more uncertainty today when you look at this particular indicator. But from my perspective, there was quite a bit of uncertainty injected into the market in general and into the economy, given that the president is now thinking of interfering with more American business in terms of its dealings with China. So none of these things make any sense to me. And maybe we get a correction in terms of volatility. I'm not exactly sure, but these are pretty low levels considering the environment that we are in. If we go to, it's not historically low levels, we're still at somewhat historically high levels of volatility. If we look at our 20 years here, it's few times that we have this high volatility, and we still did not match the volatility that we saw in the last depression, the last recession, Great Recession. So again, a lot of things don't happen to make any sense at the moment, but this is where we're at. So yeah, that's basically the market today. Let's go back to NQ, and yeah, this is where we're at. So if you guys had any questions, any comments, please feel free to let me know. Until next time, yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, take care, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.